All right, excellent. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you all are here. I'm Meredith Dooney. I'm the program coordinator for the Lawrence Library in Pepperell, and I am so pleased to welcome George Kinder with us tonight. I'm going to read you a little bit of information. I'm not doing this extemporaneously because I'm not that good. So George Kinder, and hopefully this is okay with you, George. Again, I just kind of picked and chose a few different bits and pieces from your bio on your website because I the things that I got really excited about. So
right.
George Kinder revolutionized financial advice for more than 35 years by training over 4,000 professionals in 30 countries in the field of financial life planning. He founded the Kinder Institute of Life Planning in 2003 after 30 years as a practicing financial planner and tax advisor. What is life planning? Really quick. Life planning connects the dots between our financial realities and the lives we long to live. I'm admitting one more person here. The Kinder Institute's tools and trainings make it possible for financial planners and individuals alike to cultivate a life plan designed to deliver the most meaningful kind of freedom, the freedom to pursue life's passions wherever they may lead. He's won loads of awards for his contributions to the financial planning community and to the public, for his innovative methods of helping to transform the financial planning industry, and for his commitment to transparency and to giving back. George has authored 7 books, several on mindfulness, several books of poetry, and several books on money and life planning. And they share a common theme, which is freedom. Tonight, George will talk about his latest book, Reflections on Spectacle Pond, a meditative guide to living in nature's cycle, week by week and moment by moment. George, welcome and take it away.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Meredith. Great to be here. And we're neighbors. I mean, this is an amazing thing. We're just really a town away. And so it's great to see you. If you're driving along 119, going through Groton to get to Pepperell from 495 or something, right at the Groton border, just before the Groton border, you'll pass a lake and a railroad track. That lake is Spectacle Pond. You'll see the railroad track in some of my pictures. So nice to be here. I used to drive by it for years before I finally found my way here. And the way I found my way here was I mean, Meredith's presented it really. I found my way here because I mean, this is a bit of a story, but I should tell it so you understand the poetry here. How is it that I'm a poet? When I've done so much in the financial world. The truth is that when I think many of us grew up, we had this saying back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s that do what you love and the money will follow. Well, the truth was that I loved poetry and I loved meditation, but I never found anyone who would pay me for one of my meditations or for one of my poems. So I ended up having to do what many of us have to do one way or another, is find a way to, you know, what's the gig? What do you do for a living? And I was good in mathematics. And so I found my way, I did tax returns, and then I found my way into the financial services world. But I was so passionate about living a different kind of life that I noticed that other people also were not doing what they really wanted to do. And it caused me to devise a way of working with people around their issues around money that I've now trained to thousands of advisors all over the world, so that the aspirations and the deepest aspirations, the most meaningful aspirations, were placed first. And for me, when I looked at those, we have exercises and all that, and when I did these more deep reflective exercises, there were 3 things that came up for me over and over again. One of them was that I wanted to live in the weather, was how I framed it. And you'll see that Spectacle Pond for me is living in the weather. The second thing that I wanted to do, and all of these were very personal and I didn't share it with other people. These were just what would make my life meaningful. The second thing was I wanted to, this was the weird one that nobody understood. I wanted to create illuminated manuscripts. Most people don't know what an illuminated manuscript is. Some of you will, and some of you may not. But they were the kind of the original way that manuscripts came through the ages, often with spiritual impact. There was a great, probably the most famous one from our English heritage was from Ireland, a book called the Book of Kells. But there were many books called the Books of Hours and other things that had an intermingling of text and image. That's what I wanted to do. And again, who's going to pay me to do that? And then the third thing was I wanted to live as deep a life as I could, a spiritual life, however you want to frame it. So those were the things that really moved me. No one would pay me for them. And I saw people come through my office who wanted to live more rich lives themselves. And so I began to craft something that would help them to do that by putting these dreams first. So those are the three kind of dreams that drove the writing of the book. And I'm going to share with you image by image. The book is a tour, and it's basically through your seasons, because we are just a town away from, starting in, this particular book is a weekly version of Reflections on Spectacle Pond from January 1st to December 31st. I'm going to carry you through each week, just pausing occasionally where we have time for the poetry reading as well. But you'll see all of the images. My focus, in addition to what I just shared, the work, the interior work, the spiritual work that I was interested in, led me to have a particular passion for understanding the present moment. One of the things that I recognized as I started to do this work was the only, and we all know this, but we never really address it, and that is that the only moment we've ever really experienced is the present moment. We've never really experienced the past. We've experienced the present moment, and then it becomes the past in some way. Sometimes I give a trick question to large audiences in the financial world. I say, have you ever had a moment of freedom in the past, experienced a moment of freedom in the past? I get everybody to raise their hand and I say, sorry, that was a trick question. None of us have ever experienced freedom in the past. The only time we've ever experienced it is in the present moment. So this task for me, I came to Spectacle Pond almost 30 years ago, 30 years ago next month. And what I realized was that I wanted to explore the nature of what is it? What is the present moment? How is it that it's so impactful? And yet we just we waltz through it largely focusing on the past and the future. So that's going to be a theme that you're going to see. And I think I'm just going to dive into the book now. This is 30 years of poetry and photography, Reflections on Spectacle Pond. I'm going to share a screen. And I'm going to save some time at the end so that we can, see if I can find this, so that we can chat together a bit. So let's just see. Do you see the book? Is it there? Yeah. All right, good. So occasionally I'll be messing with my mouse a bit, and I hope I don't mess your screen up too much as I arrange some of you. I get to see some of you as I'm reading this. So this is Reflections on Spectacle Pond. There it is in front of you, and a bit of reflection there as well. And then I have a dedication. I have acknowledgements where I share my influences. Although I was a financial advisor, I was an English major, passionate about music and epic poetry, Zen poetry, minored in fine arts. So I studied Hokusai and Hiroshige in the Japanese tradition. And here you go to the first image of the winter. It's the preface. And you can see already the edginess of winter, the edge of the pond against the rippling water. Here's the first page. I think I'll read, no, I won't read from this page, but right away you feel you're in winter, right? We're starting first week, there you go. Second week, again, a lot of edges, a lot of ice and snow, poetry, intermingling. One of the issues for me is how do I intermingle? And these first few, these two have a smattering of photos around, and then poetry interspersed. And this one, believe it or not, the whole image is one picture, and then I've placed three things on top of it. So that, maybe I'll read from this one. So the little bit of you can see the break in the ice halfway up in the middle. So you know that that's a photo. And down at the bottom, you see the edges of the photo, the snow, the ice, and the little space in between. I'm going to read the top right poem. If you have a big enough screen to see, you can see, and you'll be able to read some of these. And if you don't worry about it. You can subscribe for free. And I'm delivering this to everybody's inbox on your email every week. You get one of these. And we also create a little video, audible, of my reading it as well. First poem, top right. White out yesterday. 3 feet of snow piled all around. When I was young and I couldn't see, I would clean my glasses. Now my eyes are so old, I just let my glasses grow dirty, accepting what is. Cleaning them will hardly help anyway. All I want is to live in the present moment, just to see into my own nature. What use are glasses there? And then the next poem is a poem, so that was kind of a poem of aging, but the next poem is a poem that's very Zen-like. I've been very influenced by it. In fact, I've taught meditation for 35 years. So it's the white small poem. I have wandered this path every day for 20 years, yet wherever I look, I find no trace. The path is a theme, both in Zen and in this work, and you'll see the path that I actually meander down every day between my home and my cabin, where I write and where I meditate. The selflessness of that, wherever I look, I find no trace. This is a wonderful image, wild image, fisheye lens. You see the cabin on the left, of course, and the reflections in it. You can see a chair that's in there that I can sit in and gaze out this very tall window, or the horizontal window toward the left there. But you also see the pond. And the poem I'm going to read is a poem that you'll have trouble reading because it's really small. And I put it in small because it was in my last book. My last book was a book called A Golden Civilization and the Map of Mindfulness. And it was about how can we take this very troubled world that we're in and cure it of all its ills, including war, climate, democratic challenges to our democracy. How can we cure it in a single generation? And that was the theme of the book. And one of the themes was the media. And this is a poem that in that book I titled Media, and I think you'll see why. A blade of golden light streams across the ice. With perfect aim, wherever I go, it follows, piercing my heart. A message of morning, direct from the sun, breaking the earth in two. From one great beast to another, it penetrates my heart. And this is my response. I trust the sun to tell the truth. I love its morning news. Where do you find yours, great friend? Where do you find yours? It's a poem that Thoreau would have loved. This getting the news direct from nature, the truthfulness of that news, in comparison to kind of the hypocrisy and the self-interested news that we often find ourselves in the midst of. So let's see, we're going to keep going. I'll read a poem or two from this one too, and then we'll skip a few. So this one is an interesting spread. First of all, the design, I love the design. You know, you kind of have a cross image, that horizontal, that's very mysterious, with a strong accent of shadow across the middle of it. And then these two beautiful images on the top right and the bottom left. The bottom left almost seems like you know, an old Chinese figure in one of Yeats's poems, sitting there, just quiet, still. This is one of the pages of poems where I link all the poems over the years, over 30 years. The first poem I'm not going to read, it's a prose poem, but it's about being shaky and full of self-centered thoughts and slipping on the ice. And then at the end of it, I say 15 years later, slipping in the same icy wind, all the self-absorption is gone. And again, one of the tales of the book is what is the meaning of the present moment and the impact of a practice, a meditative practice. The poem underneath it: 5 more years have passed. Stomach and lungs feel bad. But when I wake, the mind is marvelously clear. For days, over 5 feet of snow have fallen. My room more still than the snow, free of thought, uncluttered, each line clean. All day I clear my mind, like pushing all the papers on a messy desk off. Over a cliff they fall, miraculously gone. When snow falls off a roof, you never have to put it back. And then the top right, again, linked in years. 6 years later, I'm like a deaf man, listening to snowfall, wishing all the other sounds would go away. So this is the February 13th to 19th, Valentine's Day week. I've got a couple of love poems on here, fun to write and to include, mysterious poems. This next one, maybe I'll read one from this. You'll see the little wren in the bottom right and kind of tucked into a poem. These poems have a great deal to do with kind of almost galactic time frames. So I'm going to read you one of those, maybe the one with the largest time frame, about longevity, actually. Bottom left. I was born in a body not meant for longevity. 100 years or less, my likely time. Yet everywhere I look, every sound I hear, whatever I feel in my heart and in my body, each moment calls me, as if from thousands of years into the future, or more likely 13 billion years in the past, of beauty, brilliance, wisdom, and yes, longevity. I fall into awe that I am here for this 13 billionth year, here, exploding in rapture just for this. What was it like for those who were here first, to experience the first moments 13 billion years ago? Just this and this, simply this. So let's see, I'll go on to the next image. I'll read this one on the right. It's more of a spiritual approach. You see, we're still in winter. I lack the robes, too poor in spirit. But each day I don the habit of a hermit monk and view the changing light, movements of wind, the freezing or flowing of the pond, the gentle arrivals or melting of the snow, as if they were messages from God. I'm not a believer in the way of the world, seldom go to a church unless this whole world be a church or this body a temple. But here, in this moment, with no one else around, listening intently, I wonder, who could this voice be for? This is a beautiful spread. It's really the end of winter, even it's March 6th through 12th. You know, here around here, we think of it lasting through March, but snows are often gone by mid-March or so. One of the poems has a kind of E.E. Cummings kind of feel to it. I think I'm going to keep going. And here you see no snow. This is March 13th to 19th. The kind of the challenges of that late winter, early spring. And here, there's my path, right? There it is. That's the path I walk every day. And out at the very end of that, if you can get very close, you'll see just a little bit of the cabin. That's where the cabin is, out on a point at the end of it's called Serenity Point. It was called Serenity Point by the Native Americans, by the indigenous people who were here before us. So I'm going to read a couple of poems here, top right and then bottom right. I pore through large white pages of my poetry, moving through January, February, and March, as if they were thin layers of snow melting before my eyes. And then the bottom poem. For 500 seconds, half a millennium for a particle of light, it streamed with millions of companions across 93 million miles of space to alight softly on this bare branch, bare stem, and reflect into my eyes. How can I ever repay such a gift? The golden light that leaps so gently from snowfall into my sight. And then this next image shows you the cabin. There you go. And the path you can still see. This image has a poem written on a tree, and there's a history to that, both in Asia and also in Shakespeare, actually, in the play As You Like It. There's references to Easter here and St. Matthew Passion. And then moving further into spring, you're beginning to see little bits of green and more blue, and the beautiful light that begins to come to us. This is April 3rd to April 9th. I'll just move through images here for a while. And again, so a little bit of frozen pond comes back, but you're beginning to see the swans. And we have swans on our pond here. They nest on Serenity Point sometimes. And here we are, April 17th to 23rd. We have a beaver hutch too. And this was a late snow. And you see the snow there, and you see a little bit of it in the top right as well. But also you feel spring. It doesn't feel like winter. And here again, more spring, more green coming. Look at the reflections, the wild reflections in the pond. And here, gosh, it's really spring, isn't it? Foggy, rainy kind of feel to the day, and a more full-on view of the pond from our land. And here now spring has blossomed. We're not to summer yet. Still fog, still some bare branches, and a wild reflection in this image. Here again, the blues and the greens get more alive. Just beautiful feeling of spring. Here it's quieter, a circle from the fall of a single raindrop. And again, reflections that are so quiet, but part of the pond, not part of the sky. Here you see a boat in the distance. And here, maybe I'll read one. I love this image because the clouds are so alive in the pond. They're as alive as that rock. I mean, they're solid like that rock. And also the grass is very articulated. I'm going to read the poem at the bottom right. And imagine me walking down the path earlier where there was no leaves. And now I'm describing walking down it in early June. My corridor of curtains closes in. Draperies of bushes, leaves, and stems droop all the way down to the path, blocking my way. I gently push wet bark back as I walk, forthright or lilting down the lane. Each time I'm different, sometimes like a scout on a scent, I scurry along, my gaze intent, downward on each stone, surveying its lines, bordered by moss or by aromas, by tapestries of flowers and leaves. I can feel the arrow of field stones carrying me somewhere into a language I'm learning, useless to all others, mysterious to myself. I let each moment be, as if I had already arrived, as if I was always arriving, as if each moment I was setting out on a grand adventure, or after long absence, as if I was just returning home. June 5th to 11th, moving through June, another similar scene there, the lily pads. There you go, the corridor of curtains, right? And see how different the path is there from it earlier. And here, I love this spread. It has the adolescent swan. The swans have nested here on the point, on Serenity Point, just beyond my cabin. And this adolescent swan is upset. He's crying out to his family because they're going off. He's not feeling well, and he's been told, you have to stay home. So he's calling to them, flapping his wings. You see the wild roses down below, which we love. We have no cultivated roses here, but we've got lots of wild roses, and the aroma is something special. And then, of course, the lilies on the pond. So I'm going to read a poem here. The first COVID summer, I have two daughters, and they're in their late teenage years, and one of them is just a magnificent singer, wonderfully musically talented. The other one has real photographic skill. So one of them, my daughter Rachel, I asked her to curate these photos. So she went through, these photos came out of a collection of 40,000 photos I've taken on the point over 30 years. And she went through every single one of them and helped kind of organize them, rate them, begin to develop them. I came in for the final bit, but she did quite a lot. It was quite astonishing. And then my other daughter, whose name is London, we decided we'd do an album during the summer of protest songs. So we did a bunch of songs about the environment, we did songs about democracy, we did songs about racism, we did songs about COVID. And this was a song that this is not in the protest vein, although it could have been written by, I think a little bit by Paul Simon. There's an element of Paul Simon in the music and in the texture, but you'll see this is more of a Buddhist song here. Top right. Anyway, you can find the album and hear her wonderful voice on Spotify. We sang together, which was quite wonderful, this old gravelly voice of mine and her beautiful soprano. Here we go. My shirt keeps falling like shadows or wind as I walk along the path, against my shoulder, against my skin. It's how I know the movie I'm in has no direction. It's not driving to conclusions. It's not about arriving at freedom at the end. Its heroism is simpler than what we know. fragile as Francis, vulnerable as Van Gogh. Its freedom is humble, is already here. No self, not deceptive, but shaky and clear. And that shaky and clear, we relate to the clear with a positive feeling, shaky we wonder about. But remember, my passion here is to understand the present moment. And of course, both Van Gogh and St. Francis, fragile, vulnerable. So that shakiness is kind of part of the human condition. Anyway, hear London and me sing it. Go to Spotify and find it. It's for free too. All right, that's July 3rd to July 9th. Let's go through July. There's some wildflowers that we have in the summer, beautiful flowers. And that's all these were just taken in the particular week, and the poems written in the particular week, but spanning these 30 years. This is the driveway coming in. And again, the Queen Anne's lace coming out. And here we are now, July 24th to 30th. You can feel kind of late summer here, mature greens here. And again, the bottom segment is an actual photograph. It's not just a white space there. That this is on top of. And here we are, luscious colors, early morning, sunrise, and luscious colors of flowers. Here, again, the just incredible early morning, or these were all early morning. So the light was amazing. And then this one, the 14th to 20th, a kind of playful image of an umbrella upside down. I think I'm going to read just the three-liner here about the present moment on the left. It's a haiku, actually. It is so funny to return to the moment. How could I forget? You know, one of the curious things about the present moment is we keep having to come back somehow to where we were, where we are. And then moving to late summer, and here you begin to really feel it, and very much here. And you see the goldenrod, as well as the Queen Anne's lace and the cormorant, which comes to our pond just at the end of August and the first few days of September. And there he is, all by himself, solitary creature, and just sitting there. Let's see, do I want to read? No, I'll read from, there you go, big image of the pond again, and you'll get a fisheye lens of the cabin, just lots of windows in it, and the sitting space, the meditation space there. And this is one of my favorites. It echoes the print masters of Japan, or as an homage to them, Hokusai and Hiroshige, and also Van Gogh, who thought of himself as a native of Japan for almost a decade, and all in his mind, but in a positive way, just really was passionate about their artistic world at that time. Here, there's a number of poems here. This was one where I really wanted to let the image shine, but the poems were so good, I had to put them all in. So I'm going to read 3 of these poems. And you know how beautiful the red maples can be. This first one's called Just an Old Man Losing Sight and Sound and Sense. Oh, if you only had my eyes, everything you saw would be a work of art. And if you only had my ears, everything you would hear would be onrushing music, pulling you forward into every opening, into endless conclusions. And oh, if you only had my sense, you would feel in every brush of wind, in every shift of atmosphere, the touch of intimacy, as if the great being of the world constantly made love to you. And oh, if you only had my spirit, if I could only touch you with my passion, all the world in every moment would reveal itself as your creation. And then this next one. Started off the day with business. Always a bad idea. regardless of how successful it might be, sets the tone, puts a frame on a day that misses its central purpose, its essence. I go into a day as if it were a world I've never worn before, a set of clothes whose very feel and fashion is something I've never known. I enter a day as if I am wise already and naive at the same time, innocent of all the well-worn notions by which we cast cloaks of gray upon our days. I listen to every sensation as if to a new music, a music of beings I've never met, imploring me to be there in just their particular way, as if they together were one giant being engulfing me with sound. I enter a day on the tongue of the great beast, in the ear of the muse, on the arrow of the archer of time itself, and speed along his course as he sows the day into being. How could I start the day with business? And then this final one up on the top. As I have aged, my meditation has become more glorious, happening all the time, wherever I am. Instead of watching TV or surfing the web or reading a book, I shine like the sun. How can it be? Everything I touch becomes still and illuminated. This is my native place. This is where I was born. To all who would conquer fear, I say, keep returning to your native place. So we're going to go through fall, the wonderful full moons of fall. Aren't they incredible? And then you see, it's beginning to get yellow. You still have some orange. It's not bright red anymore. But we know how that's why we live here, isn't it? For those few weeks in fall that are so glorious. And then this one, I just love the reflections in the pond, the little hints of fall all around the two fisheye lenses on either side. And then, of course, the yellows and just kind of the feel of the last leaves. But then something special happened one fall. I don't know if you remember, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago. We got a real snow. I think it was on Halloween, and it was right after we had a late fall, and so all the leaves came down. So you see these beautiful, brilliant leaves surrounded by snow. And there, if you look on the right-hand side of that image, you can see the railroad tracks going off. So I took so many photos on that day. And this is one of them. So all of these, and mostly in this little acre and a half that we have jutting out into Spectacle Pond. Here again, the cabin in a different time, and the pathway. Now the moss is covered with the pine needles. And fall, we can feel the coldness, and it's still pretty, but I don't know, we don't like November very much, most of us. But there's a way in which I love it. And this set of images expresses it, because it's wild, and you can feel that wildness here. It's unpredictable, and you still get the full moons, so you can see them. And anyway, I love the angles here. Maybe I'll read this 1 3-liner in the middle here. What a useless man I must seem, spending my time opening moments as if they were bottles of wine. And then winter, you see, coming through. This is one of my favorite images of winter. It has a poem from the Buddhist tradition called The 7 Factors of Enlightenment. I'm not going to read it, but I love the wildness here as well. Again, mid-December is a time where, we aren't really enthusiastic about the winter that's about to come, most of us. Very cold. I love this set of images as well. This is the Christmas Eve time. And so it's December 18th to the 24th. And I love the top image. It feels almost like you're viewing into, the manger, the barn with the manger, because it's like you've got a view on a scene of intimacy that is privileged for yourself. And it's so beautiful that you hang out there and you don't even realize. The only way you realize that there's another image is the poetry calls you. So you go to the reading of the poetry and then you discover, oh my, look at that. The bottom image, it's just as beautiful as the top. It's not quite as captivating. But back again to these lines, these edges that we find on the pond in winter. So that's the Christmas Eve one. And then this one, I'll read the one here. I reference Christmas on one of these. This is the final spread. And then I've got a postscript that I'm going to share just briefly. Top left. I live a hermit's life, even on Christmas. I live in the clouds, reflected in the pond. And when the pond turns toward ice, I live in its mottled flow. I live for the moment the sun bursts past the back of my chair onto the page I'm writing. As my fingers connect, clumsy, intelligent, lacing my shoes to go get tea, I see answers in the present moment, noticing the breath's exhale as the gray laced shoe plops my falling foot onto the floor. I like the present. Reminds me who I am. And then the final poem, the little four-liner here, and then we'll go to the postscript and then turn to questions and comments and anything you want to say. I can say it simpler than this, although there's not much to say. Just this hulking, wintry body walking through fields of light. So I think of this, by the way, this is the first of 5 books. This is the weekly edition. I have just completed spring and we're leaping into summer. And the spring book is twice as long as this because it's 90 days. This is only 52 weeks. So I'm, as I say, I'm on to summer now. So my intention is to do this for every single day of the year. I've got all the images, all the poems already lined up. It's just putting them together. And my hope is that the book will inspire people to live more in nature, live more inside themselves, live more authentically, live more in the present moment, and give them ways of thinking about it, frames for it. So given that, I thought, at the same time, I'm concerned about the world. You know that from what I've shared already. So I thought, well, I'm going to share a little bit about that. So I've got a postscript where I talk about that concern. And then there are 2 ways that I feel I'm contributing to the conversation out there that might change things. One of them is a little hard to understand, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. It bears repeating. I've written a whole book on it. A Golden Civilization, the Map of Mindfulness, has the Map of Mindfulness in it. And what it is was this recognition, as I shared at the beginning of the talk, that the present moment is the only moment we've ever experienced. So how is it that time and space doesn't have the present moment? Glorious, huge, spacious, the way we experience our lives in present moments when we're really here. So I decided to reconfigure time and space and make the present moment the center of that. And when you do a mindfulness practice that focuses on the present moment, what's really interesting is that by focusing on the present moment, you're letting go of all your preoccupations, all of yourself. You're actually cultivating selflessness. So it becomes a way of bringing great quiet, great virtue, and great spirit into time and space, into civilization, into ourselves. So there's much more about it in the A Golden Civilization, the Map of Mindfulness, a couple of pages on it here. And then the final thing is this, the world. I studied economics at Harvard. It was one of the places that I ended up majoring in English, but economics was a major for a while. And I think there's a very simple way to solve practically all the problems of the world, and that is to just simply have a very simple law. This is my one sentence legislative proposal that establishes a fiduciary responsibility for every corporation, every government, and every nonprofit. And it goes like this: a fiduciary standard of obligation is required for all institutions, corporate, nonprofit, and governmental, to place the interests of all stakeholders of humanity, democracy, and the living planet that sustains us first, above their own self-interest. So my thought is, let's just bring, common decency, a humane quality to if we're going to give hierarchies of power, let's insist they act humanely in every way in the world. So I just close with that, bringing us back into the world. There I am on the pond. There's the book again. I think I'll stop share and we'll just see if any of you have any comments or questions. We have about 10 minutes, right, Meredith? Is that about right? Yeah. And I'd happy to entertain anything from the Lawrence Library or from any of you.
So George,
yes,
I would like to say what you did was you captured what a public library is.
Oh my goodness.
You have captured what a public library is.
Yes.
That is us. That is what we do. That is what we champion.
Fabulous.
So thank you.
Wow. And remind me of your name.
I'm Deb Spratt. I'm the library director.
Wow, Deb, I'm
off this week, so I'm at home doing this, but I had to come in and zoom in to do this with you.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. I'm glad Meredith was recording this, because I'd love to have that. I mean, that's just fabulous.
You have. I mean, that is quintessential what a public library is all about.
Yeah, fabulous. As I was reading that fiduciary statement at the end, I was actually thinking that. I was thinking, boy, this is what a library is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is what we strive to be every day.
Absolutely. Fantastic. If only every institution in the world was doing that same good service all the way through. Thank you, Deb.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I'd love this evening. So thank you very much.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else like to share anything at all? Just unmute yourself. And Bob has sent us a chat. Bob, I'm going to read it. This is my first experience attending a poetry session. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation. Thank you very much, Bob. It was a pleasure. Thank you, neighbor. We're all neighbors here. Who else? Anybody else like to share anything at all?
I have a comment.
Yeah, Meredith.
Something that I noticed, kind of an observation that I had about myself as you were reading many of the poems. I was reminded how infrequently I do this and how much I really ought to do this, which is just ask myself the simple question of, does this matter? So many things that are, I feel like, going on in my life and coming at me from so many different directions all the time. I think it would probably be okay to set a lot of it aside, ignore it. So I love the idea of just really being quiet and getting into the present moment. I need to do that more. I know I would benefit from that.
Yeah, wow, well, lovely. Thank you so much, Meredith. It was a pleasure reading to you, that's my hope, is that, I mean, we all do, I think. There's a longing. One of the things I discovered over years of working with people doing tax returns, for heaven's sakes, and then other financial things over time, was that everybody seems to long for a simpler life and have trouble finding how to deliver that. And so that was one of the thoughts here was, what if I was able to give everybody a message or a format every week or every day that would just remind them, this is why I'm here. This is why I'm here. And lovely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anybody else?
I do have one question since no one else is chiming in.
It looks like Nancy might have something, but go ahead, Meredith.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then Nancy, you need to unmute yourself and because we can't hear you. Meredith, go ahead with your question.
I was really just curious about your thoughts on the minimalist movement. It seems to kind of fall in line with a lot of your poems and your
my daughter is at this school with a lot of high-powered people, kids and teachers, and they went around the circle of the math class, and she's in an advanced math class, and asked everybody what they wanted out of their life, and everybody's saying, well, I want to be a ophthalmologist, and I want to be a brain surgeon, and I want to be all these kinds of things. And when it came to my daughter's turn, this is my musical daughter, I hope you will look up her album on Spotify, London Kinder, she said, I just want to live in a tiny house and have 17 cats.
love that.
And the class, of course, burst out laughing because it was so different from all these high-powered, obviously with high-powered parents and all this kind of stuff. And I think that's why Thoreau was meaningful for me, why Francis was meaningful, Van Gogh, why the Zen tradition has been meaningful, and all of these traditions have been, in a way, getting back to our essence. And why that poem about media, where do we get our news from? I mean, the morning news from the weather around us is so much richer than what we find on our phones. So much more, and more authentic. It's more who we are in a way. So I love it, Meredith. And at the same time, we got some real problems, which is why I put that fiduciary statement at the end, is my next book that I'm writing after, it's actually in the midst of, as I'm doing spring, summer, winter, and fall, I'm writing a book called The Three Domains of Freedom. And the subtitle tells it all. Each moment is yours. That's mindfulness in the present moment. Your life is yours. That's life planning. Civilization is yours. And that's the one we have trouble kind of owning and recognizing. It's ours. We don't want war. We want a healthy planet. We need to do something. We need to be engaged. So I love the minimalist thing, but I also recognize that we have things that need to happen, including great libraries with noble missions. Yeah. Nancy, it looked as if you wanted to say something. I think we've got a few minutes left.
Yeah, just a couple of thoughts came to mind. One of the things that I've gotten really involved with in the last couple of years, thanks to a program that was offered by the Pepperell Library, is photography, and particularly landscape photography.
Oh, great.
And I have just found that it makes me more aware of things.
Yeah.
And there's just a way of being centered and being connected with nature.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are missing that.
Yeah, I do too.
And it's vital for our own mental well-being.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you. Beautifully said. And I'll add something. I came in having studied, kind of world religions and Thoreau and all these kinds of things. And we think about nature having a spiritual quality that we experience, and we dive into it. Sometimes they call it spirit, sometimes God, sometimes different names for it. What I realized just being in the scientific world at the same time is that really diving in the way you're describing, Nancy, the experience of the landscape photography, we're experiencing our biosphere. I mean, this is us, our senses going out and all of them coming into us, into this being, this creature that we are. Our biosphere, when we experience it deeply, is profound. We have a profound relationship with it. And it is essential for Gaia to survive and thrive. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, I got a quick question for Meredith.
Yeah.
I know you're recording this, but my wife couldn't attend, but she'd love to watch this. Can you let people know if you're going to have it available online?
Yes, it will be available. Possibly as early as tomorrow, but probably closer to Thursday. And I will post it on the Lawrence Library YouTube channel.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It should be pretty easy to find. Yeah.
Well, Pat should be able to find it.
Yeah. And do look at, I mean, you can get these weekly in your emails. Do look at the georgekinder.com where you'll find all that for free.
And I've been doing that, George, and it's been wonderful.
Oh, Deb, that's so great.
Yeah.
Have you watched the movies, listened to the audibles?
I have not had a chance to do the audio, but I have gotten the date. You know, when you send it out, it's what I open up and start with. So, yes, thank you.
Great. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. I love that Pepperell, that you're all in Pepperell. I mean, I just, you know, we all wished we're in Littleton, but we wish we were in Pepperell because Pepperell is more rural. I mean, but luckily we found this place and have, as you can see, nature all around us.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming.
Maybe the next one you do, you can do it in person, which would be wonderful. We're starting to reopen in May, so we could do something in person with a Zoom for someone who maybe can't make it to the recording. But
yeah, that would be wonderful. I would love that, Deb. So I'll let Laura schedules everything for me. I'll let Laura know. Yeah, and she lives in Pepperell, so that's
okay.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, I know you've got a deadline to stop, but by 7:30. Meredith, again, thank you so much for putting this together, for organizing it.
It's been my pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah, and being such a great host, and all of you for your attention and staying on the whole time. Wow.
Thank you very much, George.
It wasn't hard to do.
No, thank
Thank you so much.
you, George. Be well.
Great to see you, neighbors.
Have a wonderful evening. Thanks everyone for coming.
All right,
Thank
take care. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank you.
Bye.
Great job, Meredith. Great job, George. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.